All right, today is December 2, 2021. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. As a reminder, this meeting is public, recorded, and posted on YouTube. So today on the agenda, we have 123 planning. We actually already passed the code freeze date, which happened on November 16th, and we are very close to the release date for 123. So this cycle will just get a kind of final update to see what made it and what didn't make it. And then at the next meeting in 2 weeks, we'll do a planning session for the 124 release. If you have anything that you want to discuss, if you have any PRs to discuss, please feel free to add to the agenda. Same with design reviews or anything else that you want to talk about. So with that, I'll go ahead and jump into the planning spreadsheet and we can start getting status updates for the end of the cycle for 123. All right, so first item is delegate FS group to CSI driver instead of kubelet. I do not see Hemant on the line. Anyone else able to give a status update on DCF?
Yeah, I can give an update for this one.
Awesome.
So everything except one test PR is completed for beta. One test PR needs to be cherry picked into 123. That PR is already Ultra Team approved, just needs to wait until the code freeze to thaw.
Nice, cool. Thank you, Cheng.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead and mark this as complete then. Next item is non-recursive volume ownership FS group. Anyone have an update on that one?
That one is complete.
Awesome. Okay, and go ahead and mark that one as done as well. Next up is recovering from resize failure.
Is Jonas not here? Yeah, that one is also done.
Okay. All right, next one is issues related to assuming volumes or mount points. Doesn't look like Jing's on the line. Let's go ahead and mark that one as no update. And mount related issues, perf, etc. also related. Go ahead and mark that as no update. Okay. Next one is the volume group API.
Oh, no update yet, actually.
Okay,
Need to update
we'll
the cap.
go ahead and just move this to 124. All right, next item is the CSI out of tree iSCSI driver, fit and finish, humble. I didn't see an offline update from him.
So he gave an update. I think he also added notes there.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's his notes. Basically says he has a PR out, seems to be working. He's just wrapping it up.
Got it. Okay, and then the SIF Samba CSI driver. Anyone have an update on that one? Looks like there was good progress made here, so it's probably in a good state, but I'm going to mark it as no update for now. Send out deprecation notice for Flex is done. Next is PVC volume snapshot namespace transfer, also a design for the quarter. Anyone have an update on this one? Okay, I'm going to mark that as move to 124. Next item is CSI volume health, additional metrics and or events.
Yeah, so this one didn't make it, but I think now all the comments are addressed on the PR. We're hoping to get that merged early in the next release cycle.
Okay. And does it make sense to move to 124 or?
Yeah, 124.
Okay, cool. So comments addressed and move to 124. Next up is CSI volume health programmatic response.
No update yet.
Okay. And volume populator data source.
This one should be moved to 124. I am still doing the out of tree work before 124, sort of in the interim. It's not done yet. So
okay. We'll go ahead and get that moved over. Next is Cozy.
So I thought Sid is going to update the cap because we had a good discussion in the last meeting, but I don't see update on the cap yet. So I'm not sure.
Okay.
We'll find out.
We're going to go ahead and mark this as 124. I assume this is a multi-quarter effort anyway. Next is change block tracking.
Yeah, I don't have update, I think.
Okay.
From yes, that he's going to get back to this one.
And then runtime assisted mounting.
Yeah, the updates to the GEP are happening. It's coming along nicely, and we'll continue to make progress.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get that moved to 124 as well. Thanks, Deep. Next one is CSI proxy for Windows transition for privileged containers.
No update on this one.
Okay, and also get that moved to 124?
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is CSI migration, core bugs and issues. Last status update we got here was one bug remaining for 124. Anyone have any other updates here? I assume this was 123. Mark that as no update, and hopefully we can get an update on that one. And then vSphere CSI migration. Delay to 124, so I'll go ahead and mark that as move. And Azure was completed, Azure disk is completed, Azure file delayed to 124. And then GCE CSI migration. Matt, are you online?
Yep, that is done.
Cool.
It's in 123, and we're breaking random test pipelines with abandon because of it.
Nice. Okay, cool. So I'll go ahead and mark that as done. And next up is AWS CSI migration. Anyone have an update on that one?
That should be done. Turn
Done.
on by default.
Cool. And then finally we have, actually not finally, second to last, Ceph and Ceph RBD.
Ceph RBD is done. The alpha, that one is done. Shouldn't this be tracked separately?
That's a good point. You know what? I'll go ahead and break it out. Looks like it only has a single cap.
Okay, because I don't know the status, but SAP-FS. I think the cap that we merged is for SAP RBD. So
Got it.
maybe we need to create another cap for SAP-FS.
Okay. So you're saying RBD is done?
Yeah.
And okay, so marked RBD is done and SFFS as no update. Next up we have Portworx.
This is also done.
Cool. All right, next item is always on a reclaim policy. This was moving to alpha for the cycle. PRs were all merged last time and blog was work in progress. Any update on this?
Is Deepak here? If not, okay. So so this one is basically just the blog that need to get that merged. So I think we can mark this as done.
Okay. All right, next item is control volume mode conversion between source and target PVC.
Yeah, I don't think there is an update yet. I think Ronald is still working on that.
Got it. Okay, I'll just go ahead and mark this as move to 124.
Sure.
Okay, next item is secret protection, prevention of deletion while in use, depending on in-use protection kept below. And then you have the in-use protection kept co-owned by SIG API machinery. I'm guessing no updates on both of these.
Yes, please move these to.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Move these to 1.24.
Move to. Okay,
yeah.
Sounds good. All right, thank you, Misaki, for the update. Next is co-owned with.
Can I ask what in use means in the context of that cap, like for that change? Is it just in use by a pod or in use by something that will be using it later? Like,
yeah, actually, any reason should be fine for generic in-use protection side. And for secret protection, we need to define what is used. So currently, I assume that by pod or by PV or volume snapshot content.
okay, so it's a flexible definition of in use.
Yep.
All right. I guess that makes me nervous because if it's flexible, it can change over time. And how do you reconcile something that was previously not considered in use and now is considered in use, or vice versa? I could see that getting difficult to implement if you don't have a crisp definition of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, before merge and become GA, we need to make strict definition.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
will have a strict definition by the time we're done. All right. That's cool.
Yep. Yep.
All right, cool. Next item is user ID ownership in config maps and secrets. Preserve default file mode bits in atomic writer volumes. And anyone have an update on that one? Okay. And next item is ungraceful node shutdown. This was a design for the quarter, or sorry, a prototype for the quarter.
Yeah, so I'm going to update the cap, still working on it.
Okay.
So we can move this to 1.24.
Okay. And next up we have enable user namespaces in kubelet so UIDs get shifted, rootless mode. Any updates on that one?
I took a look at their cap, and basically I think for they've broken it into a couple of phases, and for the first phase they're trying to avoid any storage related stuff.
First phase they're trying to avoid what?
They're basically trying to avoid applying namespace, applying the user IDs to pods with persistent volumes, basically.
Pods with persistent. Any recommendation? Just move this to 124.
Yeah, I think we just have to track this.
Got it. Cool. Thank you for taking a look deep.
Sure.
Next item is address issues PVC created by stateful set will not be auto removed. Matt, do you have any updates on this one?
Yeah, it's in, the docs are in. I mean, I think we can mark it as done.
Awesome.
Alpha is go.
Cool.
And just as an aside, if anyone else is considering doing a cross SIG feature, you should talk to me. I'd learned some procedural things that would have sped this up a lot more.
Nice. All right, cool. Thanks, Matt. Next is volume expansion for stateful sets.
I think we're waiting for Haman to review it.
Okay.
I think we're still waiting for him.
Let's just move that to 124. And then next and final is execution hook for application snapshots.
Yeah, we don't have any update yet.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get that moved. All right, cool. I think that is all that we have for the 123 release. So I'm seeing a decent amount of green, which means that the SIG got a fair amount done this cycle. And for the remaining items, we'll go ahead and create a new tab, get that moved to 124. And then when we do the 124 planning next cycle, we can go through the items that weren't completed and decide if we still want to commit to them or not. And in the meantime, if there is anything that you think the SIG should be working on for the next release, please show up to the next meeting. That'll be an important one for figuring out what we work on for the next cycle. If there's anything you want to work on, anything you think the SIG should be working on, that's the meeting to attend.
So is that right before Christmas?
It is going to be on the 16th, so it'll be the week before Christmas.
Okay, so probably too many people won't have gone on vacation yet.
Yeah, that's my hope. And if we see attendance is light on the 16th, we could end up delaying it to post-Christmas probably don't want to do it on the 30th around New Year's because that'll probably be lightly attended. And then the next opportunity will be probably sometime in January. So ideally we can get it done on the 16th, but if not, we can delay to early January.
I wonder when is the next freeze deadline? Normally, the last time it's like 1 month after the release.
Right, right.
That will be
Yeah.
like beginning of January. I don't know if they're going to extend it.
Yeah, I'm
this
not
time.
sure if it's been published yet.
Yeah, it's not yet. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So hopefully we can get it done
yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
And if not, nothing else, like we can get started on the 16th, and then, you know, if we need to extend it, you know, we can complete it on another date.
Yeah.
All right, so switching back to the agenda doc, first up we have PRs that need attention. We have 105833. Somebody want to talk about this one?
Hi, Manu here. Last last month when I gave an update, I needed some help on the tests. I added those tests so that a reviewer can like just pull this PR and run them manually as well. So right now I'm hoping to get like someone from storage to completely have a look at it, and also possibly get it merged in December itself. And I'll be only off for like a couple of days, so all my attention can go towards this if it's required. I don't think I'm off at all. So, it's just that my time zone would change a bit.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone interested in helping review this? I think Jing might be a good candidate. All right, if anybody on the call is interested in testing or in reviewing this, please take a look. And in the meantime, I will add Jing here as a reviewer. Okay. Anything else on that, Manu?
Yeah, the reason like we would like to get it reviewed as soon as possible is that like some of our customers, so we have tried to like at least at AWS, we have tried to look for other workarounds, and nothing is working for our customers. So right now I cannot see any way to like mitigate the production pain also, and that's like one of the major reasons that we would like to get it reviewed like as soon as possible, not just the performance implication but also like the nodes are dying out because of the contention for the customers that we have.
Got it. And so if this gets merged, it's going to go into 124. Is that okay?
Yeah, that is perfect. We can then build our own
Got it. Okay.
patch on top of this.
Sounds good. And yeah, feel free to ping us if it's not making progress. And hopefully we'll get this reviewed and merged as soon as possible. I think getting it in early in 124 is a good idea because it'll give a decent amount of time for it to bake in 124 before 124 goes out. So if there are any issues or regressions, we can catch them.
Yes, that is definitely one of the things that I was thinking. I did not do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Manu. All right, let's switch gears. Next item is a design review. Matt Carey mentions that start using resource limits in CSI drivers so that a driver can reserve space for future expansion, for details at a link he has posted here. Take a look and comment.
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. That is the sort of pithy explanation. I mean, I guess part of what this is part of a matter of me not knowing the history of why the limit. So if I understand everything correctly, there is a resource limit in Kubernetes, which is currently ignored. There is in the CSI request in the capacity range a maximum bytes, which I guess isn't come through to anything. And like the first question I had is if there was any context as to why the Kubernetes limit is being ignored. And then also if this is a good or bad idea in general.
Got it. Anyone remember the context on this? I'm trying to jog it into memory.
I think we did not have a good use case for the limit, because when we were designing the dynamic provisioning, we just needed one size to ask from the storage backend, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, like I certainly this is true that like most of the use cases we've had have just been, have just needed a single number, but we're starting to look into a slightly more complicated backend for storage, where knowing how big you might want the volume to be, so that you can guarantee that future expansion is possible, but you don't necessarily have to pay for the space up front.
So can I ask what it would mean to guarantee the space? I mean, if I have like a pool of say 2 terabytes and I allocate one volume that's like say 500 gig, but I want to be able to expand to 2 terabytes. Can I put another one in there that would also be asking for some capacity to be guaranteed, or would this be essentially equivalent to me requesting the full 2 terabytes in a PVC and just not making use of it, right? And assuming that, like,
yeah. So just to get into a bit more details of our precise problem, what we're considering is a situation where the storage pool is provided by like discrete instances that can then be split into shares, and each instance has a maximum capacity. It has a maximum capacity of 10T, and so if you start out with like 500 gig shares, but then know that you might want to expand them to 2T. That means you could only fit a total of 5 shares on one instance, and when you allocate the 6th one, you would put that on a new one. You would spin up a new instance. Whereas if you knew that expansion would not be necessary, you could pack more shares on an instance. So this kind of gives you a nod to a bit of like price performance trade-off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess the part that I'm struggling with there is, is that materially different than if I had just, to use your example, just requested my PVC to have 2T, even though I'm only going to use 500 gig?
Yes, because the instance is each instance itself can be dynamically sized. So each instance can be dynamically sized, but has a minimum size. So say that the minimum size of each instance is a terabyte. And if you have a bunch of 100 gig shares, you would like to pack them all into this single instance in order to meet the minimum 1T size. And then if instances needed to be expanded, you could then expand the backing instance, but you would not need to do that until the expansion actually occurs, so it saves costs. But because each instance has a maximum size of 10T, you need to know how big each share might possibly get to know how many shares. That answer your question?
Yeah, yes, that helps. I guess it's sort of pushing the requirement to the user a bit, as opposed to something that, say, the storage system. I realize that this would be hard, but something that the storage system itself could potentially do, right? Noting that it's using, 75% of whatever capacity it has allocated from wherever it's getting storage, and so automatically expanding itself, right? Which I think is kind of where you're going with that.
Right, but the issue is like, suppose you wanted 100 gig instances, but in this case, and there isn't going to be any expansion, then because each instance has a minimum size of 1T, you would like to put at least 10 of those shares on an instance in order to meet the minimum size. But in that case, you would be, if each of those shares wanted to expand at some point in the future past a terabyte, you'd be stuck, right? Because of the maximum instance size of 10T. But if you wanted to guarantee that each share could expand up to 2T, then the maximum number of shares you could put on there would be 5, which means you would be underutilizing the instance when things are at a minimum, and so paying more, right? Because you would have to pay for the 1T minimum. And so, like, it seems to me that kind of trade-off, like, that can't be automatically figured out by a system. It is a trade-off that the customer has to know how to do.
Yeah, I got you now.
Yeah, I mean, and I certainly see that this is like an additional complication for a somewhat niche case. So I'm definitely interested in hearing people's thoughts. Like, is this a reasonable thing to do, or is this a bit too niche? If it is niche, is there a different way to it through? I mean, we considered other things like, having an annotation, but the problem is that annotations and such aren't passed through to the CSI request.
Matt, this sounds similar to, we had a storage pool proposal at one point where we were thinking about making storage pools a first class concept and trying to figure out what would be the operations that we would expose to them and what the relationship of storage pools would be to storage volumes that got provisioned off of those storage pools. And
Right.
in this case, it sounds similar, where it sounds like your instances that can be dynamically sized are pools essentially, and then you can create volumes inside of that. If you had a concept of a storage pool, would that be sufficient here, or do you think that would be a mismatch?
I think it would be, but I mean, I guess certainly here the devil is in the details. You know, like, I don't know how much of our use case is really generalizable to all storage pools in general, or the fact that we have these minimum and maximum instance sizes, if that's unusual.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's a good question. So my initial gut reaction would be if we can align this with the general storage pool proposal and kind of come up with something generic that works for everyone, great, let's do that. The alternative, I think, to consider would be a CRD specific for your CSI driver, where it extends the basic set API and kind of lets you get this additional set of controls potentially.
Right. Now, so in order to do that, that would also require, I mean, I guess this would require our driver reaching into the Kubernetes API.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the place to start would be to see if we can align this with a wider community.
Yeah, I think so. Do you know any good contacts for the storage pool?
I'm trying to recall who worked on storage pools last. Let's take a look at the spreadsheet. I think no one's working on it this cycle.
I think that one was kind of combined with the capacity tracking.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one you were talking about, right? Or are you talking about the spreading?
I think we were trying to handle both.
So the spreading, we removed it because that has a dependency on the working group one, right? Because we always say that's pending that one. So, so the working group one mentioned a little bit, but then because that one is always kind of at the end of the cap, so we always kind of saying, okay, we delete that one. That's what happened.
You're right. Yeah. So I guess our storage pools were volume groups, and the volume groups were focused specifically on snapshots, consistency groups, and spreading. And in this case, I'm not sure a storage pool is similar to volume group or not, but it would be worth having the discussion to see what the alignment is there. I think we ended up, let's see, where's storage pools?
The issue with groups is that there's like 500 different types of groups you can imagine, and it's easy to get confused or to conflate them with each other. So like I'm very nervous about the idea of just tying everything to some amorphous concept of grouping, unless the grouping concept itself is flexible enough to cover every imaginable use case.
Well, that was what we are trying to do, but that's also another reason why it's going so slow. Because
that's the other problem is
trying to, even just
maybe we're too ambitious.
Support the basic, but I think if you want to support different type of storage, then we have different requirements. So
one could imagine an implementation of spreading that just uses like a selector or something, and it doesn't need anything sophisticated like a group. And again, this pool concept is sort of something that exists anyway. It exists independent of Kubernetes. This is a question of is Kubernetes aware of it or not. And there's so many other types of groups that are either administratively defined or physically defined. And how you deal with each one matters on exactly what it is you're doing.
So maybe, Matt, it's good for you to take a look. There was one cap proposed by Christian not long ago, and then we decided to merge that one with the work that Patrick is doing. The other one talked about the storage pool. If you can start taking a look of that one and see what we can do. So we had some discussions with Michelle is also involved. Patrick also. We can maybe start with that one and see what we can do.
Thank you.
I can give you a link of that old cap, and also I don't know if Patrick's here. Basically, Patrick and I talked to him last time, I believe he was saying like the way that we are doing the storage capacity tracking, we can't really do this for the pool anymore. So, but maybe we can take another look and see. I don't know if there is a way to extend that, or do we need a completely different concept?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one of the things I was thinking is that, like, rather than try to define a whole storage pool model, I was thinking sort of more of a bottom-up thing, that the concept of a maximum size for a volume might be a reasonable thing, and then
But that one is already added, right? So Patrick added that maximum size for volume already in CSS spec.
Right, but it isn't plumbed through from Kubernetes.
Oh, you're saying is that what you're trying to add a matching field in Kubernetes for that one?
So, yeah, and
sorry,
I think. Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, the thing that Patrick added for maximum volume size, I think is different than what Matt is proposing here. I think the maximum volume size that is added for capacity tracking is mainly to say, at this moment, this is the maximum volume size that you can provision. But I think what Matt is interested in is sort of a way for a user to indicate this is the sort of max possible size I would ever want to expand my volume to in the future.
So I'm just thinking about this, and how does that work if you have a whole bunch of volumes with a whole bunch of limits? Is the storage system expected to reserve all of the space for all of the volumes, or just enough space for any one of the volumes?
No, so the idea here is that the customer use cases we have in mind are when the customer wants a guarantee on volume, and then it's the responsibility of the driver to make it happen, even if it ends up being a more expensive way to do it than if it just made the allocating toward current size.
Yeah,
but
well,
not
what I'm trying
any future expansion.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is, like, there are no guarantees that you can ever expand anything unless you just make the volume bigger, right? I mean, the only way that you could, in reality, enforce such a guarantee would be to actually allocate the space out of whatever pool you're using ahead of time, and that seems no different than just making the volume bigger. Anything else you do risks a chance that you won't be able to expand it later, right?
Well, no, I mean, the use case I mentioned here is exactly a case where, you know, you do have a different allocation strategy depending on whether you want to guarantee future expansion or not.
But why not just make? Okay, I'm not following, I guess. If I have a bunch of 100 gig volumes and I want to reserve the right to expand all of them to a terabyte, I basically have to carve up a terabyte for every single one of them, or risk not being able to meet that guarantee, right? So why not just make them all 1 terabyte up front?
Because you have to pay for the terabyte now. So you can begin with an instance which you allocate as a terabyte, and you're paying for a terabyte, and it has 10 shares each of 100 gigs. And then if a share
okay, so it's not a. I think I understand what you're saying, but that's definitely not a storage pool, right? A storage pool implies that you have some physically limited thing and you're slicing it up, and to implement limits in that scheme would really mean you basically have to reserve part of the pool for your future expansion. This is a situation where there is no pool. It's someone else's problem to give you the extra space, and you're basically just postponing when you ask for the extra space.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Yeah,
so
I get it. I get it. But I don't see that as aligning with storage pools at all.
Yeah, that's fair. I am not familiar with the storage pool proposal, so. Yeah, I mean, and I guess the thing I'm trying to avoid too is that, you know, to decouple the complexities of like the storage implementation from the user experience in Kubernetes. And so you know, so like I guess my idea is to try and determine the characteristics that are most important for a user to specify, and then, you know, allow the backend driver to figure out whatever strategy it sees fit in order to make that happen.
Yeah, it's hard. I also see overlap with like thin provisioning. Like if you wanted to have 100 gigabyte volume that you might later expand to 1 terabyte, you could just have a thin provisioned 1 terabyte volume and only use 100 gigabytes of it. And if there's a billing model that enables you to only pay for what you use, then you would be perfectly happy.
Right.
But there usually isn't. So
exactly.
Like
Actually,
any guarantees on a thin provision volume can also be satisfied with this potentially.
Excuse me?
Any reservation guarantees on like the thin provision on a thin provision volume can potentially be satisfied with the concept like.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, can you use opaque parameters to handle this? And what I'm thinking is, you know, have an opaque parameter on a storage class that says, I want thin provisioning, and I want it to be, you know, pay as you use, and I want the maximum size of this to be, you know, X, and that's defined at a storage class granularity.
Yeah, which, I mean, that gives you, like, that is certainly an option we've considered, but then that means it has to be uniform across all PVCs using that class. And like, if you had someone where you have heterogeneous usage of this, I mean, it isn't a storage pool, I think, in the sense people understand here, but like, if you have heterogeneous usage of this storage class, sure. Yeah, then you're stuck because there really isn't a lot of information that is plumbed from the PVC through the CSI.
So per volume would be the flexibility, but on the other hand, what if a user like abuse this, like they put a very high number?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but that's something the user could abuse anyway by putting a high request.
No, but if you put a high request, you charge for it. But if you put a high reserve, I don't know how you charge it for it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be up to. I mean, well, so I guess one thing is that this would still all be subject to the same namespace level resource quotas that already exist in Kubernetes.
That would help a lot to have quotas.
Yeah, which I think that we have those, right? You can
yeah, it's not obvious that the quotas apply to this, but if they do, then yes, it would work.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, great. That's all follow up to detail exactly how the quotas work. I think that's a great point.
All right, so in terms of next steps here, it sounds like there's a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe, Matt, you can kind of walk through some of those and put together a proposal.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So what I'll do is I will add as much of this discussion as I can capture into the existing doc. I will reach out to the folks that you have suggested to me. I'll probably follow up, Jing, to make sure I have the correct folks. Yeah, and then please, I think the existing doc is a good one to continue conversations. So if anybody feels like it, please proactively add any comments there. And yeah, as I said, I will follow up.
Cool.
Okay, thanks all. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you for bringing this up, Matt. Anyone else have any other topic they want to discuss today? Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and end a little bit early and give folks time back in their day. Thanks, everyone.